the Fringe is taking place, Joe. So just give a little bit of context to what's happened with chronic insanity and what's happened for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself since the last Fringe.
Sure. I guess if we take the last Fringe as being 2019, then technically Chronic Insanity hadn't produced a show yet. We formed in May of that year, but didn't really do anything until September. No, I lie. We held a scratch night at Zoo Southside in 2019 as a sort of first event trial run of us as an organisation. So I guess since the last Fringe, we've done everything that we've done, which is we aim to do 12 shows every 12 months. We've managed to exceed that so far every year. And I think by the end of Fringe this year, we'll hit 12 shows with the autumn still to go. A lot of shows are immersive or experimental and interactive in some way. A lot of shows are digital and online and about online spaces and about online communities. And a lot of shows are traditional and in person, but if we're doing them in person, we try and make them as live as possible. We try and make those shows feel properly, this is happening for one time here, whether that is the kind of particular stories being told and the intimate way that they familiarize you with a concept or a group of people or the performer, whether that's making shows that are random and legitimately improvised or random, so each performance is different, or whether that's making shows that are feel live and only be experienced in the live space, like a gig theatre show or a show with a lot of immediate stuff that needs to take place in the same room as you for you to get the same full effect. Like we really try and, knowing that we're quite capable of doing digital and online as well as in person, what is a story we can tell online and what's a story we have to tell in person.
So you've done a lot of the online stuff during pandemic. So the concept, I mean, Edinburgh Fringe is in the same place every year. It's 3 weeks during August. So where is your perception of the Edinburgh Fringe? Where have you been aware of it? Have you been in the past? And where was your thinking in terms of we're going to take something to Edinburgh 2022?
Of course. So I think, I've taken shows up to Edinburgh before. I think technically, including both the pandemic years, we did stuff online for Edinburgh, whether that was through Zoo TV or whether that was last year we got some Fringe recovery funding and we ran our own live streamed EdFringe venue in Nottingham called Insanity Point. This is our 7th year in a row doing stuff for the Fringe, or 7th year in a row me doing stuff in the Fringe under various different companies I've been running. Chronic Insanity's 3rd, 4th, I guess technically, but our first in-person year. So I think as soon as we could get back up in person, we knew we'd be taking something up. And one of the shows we're doing this year is a show that we were going to be doing in 2020, but then that got cancelled because of the pandemic. And so we're bringing it up afresh. And we've got another show up as well, because it's the right time and place for it, both in the lifetime of that show and, from a societal perspective. So, yeah.
So lifetime of the show, you've obviously had Edinburgh framed in your professional consciousness. Is it a milestone in your career or in your schedule each year for the company for Chronic Insanity? What does Edinburgh mean to Chronic Insanity and Joe Strickland?
Yeah, Edinburgh is a chance for, well, I guess for more people to see what we get up to. We're based in Nottingham and we do a lot of work in the East Midlands, and we'll occasionally take things down to London or to Brighton or to Edinburgh. And I think when we travel out of the East Midlands, it's a chance for us to share some of the innovative and interesting stories we're telling and work that we're making with other people. Producer hat on, maybe it's a chance for press. Maybe it's a chance to kind of check your work against a bit more of a different audience. See if you're aiming for something kind of zeitgeisty or to reflect culture in a specific way. How do people react to it? How do people respond that aren't sometimes just the same audiences that you get by being a local theatre company based in one area? You get fans and you get people coming along to see work, but it's nice to keep getting new people seeing the work you're making and hearing what they think about it. We don't want to get stale or just making the same things over and over again. We do digital theatre. If we want to make something that can be seen all the time, we'll record it. We'll put it up online for people to see for free. We don't need to perform it over and over again.
They archive on the website. That is one thing. You do archive a lot of your shows because they have they have a presence beyond the live if the shows are made that way. So there is a good range of your work, available to dip into on the website.
Yeah, and we're aiming to make that an easier to navigate thing this autumn, an actual proper archive. At the moment, you can see the digital work that's currently live and on demand, and then like the posters and names and times the other plays took place, but no real information about them. No press quotes, no cast listing, no crew listing, no locations, no tour packs. And I want
to business of theatre,
kind of a more detailed archive of the work that we've made, because we've done a bunch of it. Like we did 18 shows in the first year, 24 in our second. We're doing show 11 and 12 at the moment. That's probably past 50 shows in 3 years, and that's a lot of work. And we don't want to, I don't know if I could name everything that we've done off the top of my head, but it's nice to kind of put that all somewhere and be able to reflect on it and direct people to it if they have a particular question about something. So yeah, I think as a resource for both ourselves and other people who ask us questions about how to do stuff, or how we manage or work as a company, I think having something online and that's super accessible and easy to search through and navigate would be perfect.
You're certainly a prolific company. Just tell us a little about the structure, because there's you artistic director and your co-artistic director, Nat Henderson. Just tell us about the company, a little bit about its origin and what you're planning to do.
Of course. Nat and I met at university, and we were doing shows for a couple of years as students in the student theatre, and also taking a few smaller productions to Edinburgh and stuff. And then we sort of hit a bit of a wall with student theatre, and there was more that we wanted to do and make, and different stories we wanted to tell and ways we wanted to tell them that we just weren't able to in the location we were in. It's just the way that they, as a society, and offered opportunities to everybody and made it fair, and also had difficult financial margins, so had to make shows that would appeal to audiences and sell tickets in the same way as being experimental, meant that we found it difficult and struggled to kind of make the work we really wanted to make. So we needed to branch out and move on from it. And so we formed the company as a way of doing that. And we thought, we see a bunch of great shows as students that are put together by people part-time without being employed in like 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that end up being some of the best shows that we saw at university. So we know that a good show can be made from nothing to something within less than a month. So to us, 12 shows in 12 months didn't sound particularly challenging, because we would pick the right shows that we could do. Like, we're not going to be doing a 5-act Shakespeare every month. We're not going to be doing a Samuel Beckett play or a Pinter, something that requires a load of really intense character, figuring out what this means, how it relates. We'll pick things that we can do, and we'll overlap things. So actually we spend 2-3 months maybe on each production, but we're just in different phases on this number of productions at any one time. So we overlap. We manage our time. Yeah.
You've got those numbers of productions and you're managing your time. Whereabouts in the year do you think we're going to take a show to Edinburgh? How do you choose which show, and what's the application process? How do you take an idea of taking to a show to Edinburgh and actually getting the show to Edinburgh?
Sure. Sometimes it can be during the previous Edinburgh. Sometimes it can be even before then. Like, we tend to start thinking about it seriously traditionally in that kind of September, October, before the Fringe we're aiming for. We've thought about it a bit earlier for next year already. We have plans and ideas. Like, a lot of the ways that we apply for opportunities is quite in a sort of scattershot approach, where we'll throw a lot of stuff at a lot of walls and see what sticks. And we're at that stage in our career as an organization where we need to kind of try and do that. Like, we started doing shows at places like the Space and Greenside, where if you're early enough and you have the rent together, you can just choose a space and lock it in super early and know you have a location. But we've started moving into that next tier of venues, and there's nothing wrong. I fucking love Greenside in the Space. Like, they're really good. They offer loads of opportunities. If you have a nice simple show that you can kind of get up and on its feet, you want to get in front of an audience in a nice central location, perfect venues for people starting out and for people that are continuing as well. But we wanted to try and get into a space that felt a bit more, maybe just for our own egos, a bit more curated. Because then we could try and get more industry and more press attention, and it feels like at a venue that curates, it shows someone's already done a selection process, and what you're seeing is already going to have been ticked by somebody. And so we've been at the Zoo, at Zoo Southside in 2019, and at Zoo Playground this year. But we applied to Edinburgh with a bunch of shows. We pitched to lots of venues, Underbelly, Pleasance, Assembly, Summer Hall. A few venues we wanted to pitch to weren't open this year. We pitched probably 3 shows, but one of the shows we have up is a show we didn't pitch. We kind of worked with that venue to kind of just get that on anyway. So I think we pitched 3 shows, and out of those 3, we got 1 on in 1 location, in spite of writing, I don't know, 9-10 applications. So, and that's with us having been at the Fringe loads of times, having had good reviews. We get 4-star reviews every year for stuff. It's hard and competitive.
It's very competitive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's if you want to get to different levels of different eases of getting involved with stuff. Yeah.
So what's the first time for someone starting out? So I want to take a show to the Fringe next year. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give me to start thinking about where I place myself in the Edinburgh Fringe?
That's a really good question. It's one that we're going to write a blog post about during this Fringe or just at the end of, so there will be more details about it, because there's so much we can go into and so many different considerations. The best thing to do is to figure out why you're doing Edinburgh and then come up with a strategy for that. Like, are you performing for audiences? Are you trying to attract press attention for your show you can then use to sell things in the future or raise your profile? Are you trying to network with industry people to get tours booked or support, financial or in kind or whatever, from other venues? Are you trying to combine any of those together? Do you just have a show or a story that you want to tell? And then in that case, what are your outcomes? Like, a lot of people are getting disheartened this year because they have shows where I just want to take a show to the Fringe, I just want to perform in Edinburgh, but then they're upset that they're not selling many tickets or they don't have press coming in. And I think there are fewer audiences, and audiences are finding it harder to find stuff because there's no app this year, and the Nearby Now feature on the website doesn't really work. I found myself wandering around the city with like 2 hours to spare being like, I don't know what's on anywhere. And then people will flock to the recognizable places like Pleasance or Summer Hall to kind of, because they also know they've got screens that say what's on when, whereas other venues might not. Yeah. And so some venues kind of lose out and stuff.
Yeah.
Or there's also a lack of review. There are fewer reviewers than usual because fewer people want to put all that energy in and not really necessarily get a lot of stuff out of it. So I think you have to really have a clear reason of why you want to take something up to Edinburgh. There's loads of valid reasons, like many are just listed and many more as well. But you have to also kind of be honest with yourself, because if you're saying, I just want to tell a story, and then you go up and you're annoyed that you're not selling tickets, it might be because the story you want to tell isn't particularly, it's not easy to sell. If you're going up by yourself and you don't have thousands of pounds to spend on PR, and you don't have a team flyering for you, and your show isn't hitting a zeitgeist thing, it's not popular, it's not something that people will see and want to instantly go without knowing who you are or even reading any more of the blurb, then you might struggle with stuff. But if you can find that niche, if you can find that audience and you can appeal to them, there's a very wide audience at Edinburgh. It's not just a Fringe festival, there's a book festival, there's a food festival, there's so many people here looking for
the episode 1 stream, Get With the Programme. I very much wanted to start this series with how big the programme is. I mean, I scrolled through on a screen share of what the programme is and just how vast it is. And even if there's a massive audience in Edinburgh, you can't get to see all of the shows. There's just so much, and it being just one festival, more than just one festival. So yeah, it's really tough. So if people do want to get a bit of an idea of how you can dissect the programme, do check out episode 1. So you are here. You are now at the Fringe.
Yep.
How long have you been up at the Fringe? How long are you there for? And what are the shows that you have? What is Chronic Insanity now present at the festival doing?
Yeah. We've been up since the beginning, Tuesday last week. We are up until the end. I think we're leaving on August the 30th. We have 2 shows up, like I said. One is the show that we wanted to do in 2020, which is called 52 Souls. It's a zoo playground. It's a pick and mix show about death and mortality, where there are 53 monologues, each linked to a playing card and a pack of cards. The audience shuffles the pack of cards. We turn an hourglass over and we perform as many scenes as we can before we run out of time. and those scenes are very varied. They are comedic and tragic. They contain music and magic and poetry and puppetry and mime and all sorts of bits and bobs. The other show is called Some Other Mirror. It's written and performed by Laurie Owen, and it's a story about transitioning during the course of lockdown, becoming a trans man, and all of the kind of bits and bobs, both internally and externally in the real world, that entails moving through, particularly during a global pandemic. And that's on at Pianodrome, which is a venue in Newtown on Carlton Hill, which is basically an amphitheatre made out of upcycled parts of pianos, and is one of the most gorgeous venues I think I've ever seen, let alone performed in. So we feel very lucky to be in that venue as well. It's really lovely.
Yeah, so it's such a big site. So so how close are these together? So Some of the Mirror is at venue 391, which is at the piano constructed venue.
Yeah, Pianodrome, yeah.
And so what times are Some of the Mirror playing?
Some Other Mirror is on at 7 p.m. in the evening. Our final performance is today, Friday the 12th of August. 52 Souls is up for the rest of the month, performing every day without a break at 3:55 in the afternoon.
So that's it. I mean, with setting your stall out for your own experience, I was saying earlier that you've got the sections of the clock. You've got early shows, 2 lots of early shows potentially before lunch. You've got the after lunch slot, the mid-afternoon slot lunch, early evening, late evening, and nighttime. So I guess you're late afternoon.
Yeah, I guess it's late afternoon. I'd say Some Other Mirror is probably early evening.
Yeah.
Time slots have been interesting this year. It feels like some are very swollen with good shows, and others are just empty of a lot of things. There have been point in the day where I've been struggling to find things to watch, and not just because of feels like there's less stuff on in that kind of evening.
Are the venues very spread out this year? Or is there lots of street theatre going? Is it connected between the streets? Because that's the things when I've been there, that things go on in between the world of the theatre venues.
A little bit. It feels like most places are kind of have returned back to their regular stomping grounds. I know a few venues have moved, and a few venues are new in meanwhile use spaces that are previously unoccupied. But most places are back to where they usually are. I think last year there were lots more outdoors and street theatre stuff from like a COVID perspective, and because venues were kind of buddying up and kind of collaborating on outdoors and experimental spaces, but it's pretty much kind of returned back to, I'd say, how it used to be.
Yeah, there's that drive to embrace the physical again, isn't there? And I think that's inevitable. I did look a little bit at the digital and the live stream program. There's a few shows. There's about 52 in the program that are saying that they're either on demand or scheduled. There doesn't seem to be as many live stream digital shows, but I'm going to have a look at those. But have you got any digital pieces on the schedule?
Not as part of the Fringe officially. You can always go to the Chronic Insanity website. We've got a bunch of stuff there at the moment, but not officially as part of the Fringe. No, not this year.
It's well worth 2 years checking out the Chronic Insanity archive, especially if you've not entered into the world of immersive and you're not quite sure what theatre looks like and behaves like. It's a really good introduction to look at how technology is being adapted and consumed into storytelling. I'm really in awe of the stuff that Chronic Insanity is doing. It's a pleasure to be able to have you Nottingham based as well, meeting over the pandemic. So are you performing in 52 Souls? What is your role up at the Fringe?
Sure, yeah. I am performing in 52 Souls alongside Nat Henderson. Nat is now no longer co-artistic director. Nat is a literary manager at Chronic Insanity. We've started the UK's first digital theatre literary department, dedicated to championing and furthering the call for digital theatre. But Nat and I are both very proud multi-hyphenate performers and producers and directors and writers and all sorts of things. So we're both performing 26 monologues each as part of 52 Souls. And then for Some Other Mirror, I directed that show, I've been producing it, and I'm operating. It was written and performed entirely by Laurie by himself. So.
Wow. So what happens after Fringe? So how long you're there until the end? So the 31st?
Yeah.
So you're performing right up to that last Monday.
Yeah, I think our final performance is on the 28th, which I think is the Sunday. But we'll be up there for a couple of days afterwards to hang out. I want to go to the zoo. I've never been to Edinburgh Zoo, and every year I'm like, I'm going to go to Edinburgh Zoo, and then I never have time because it's the Fringe. But this year we're up a few days extra, so I want to go and do museums and other things I haven't had the chance to do.
There is other stuff at Edinburgh.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we've got if anyone wants to make a note of the venue numbers, we've got 186 for 52 Souls for tonight only. So we're streaming on Friday the 12th of August. You've got 391 there if you want to go and see that show. Where are you off to now then?
52 Souls starts in an hour. So we're going to head to the venue. We start getting in about past, get changed, set the stage up, and then we're ready by 3:55.
Wow. So and how long is the show?
The show is about 50 minutes. Obviously, it gives or takes depending on the hourglass and how frictionless or frictionful the sand feels like being that day. But it's a relatively predictable 45-50 minutes long. Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you as context for, I know, my Edinburgh journey. I've been audience for many years and I really want to take something to Edinburgh. The idea that you have of taking a full singing and dancing show to your first Fringe, I think, is foolhardy. So I will probably be backpedaling from that one, but I certainly want to have some sort of presence there. So we will keep this to our 30 minutes. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining me. And I will see you when you return to Nottingham.
Yep.
And I will bring the stream to a close.